What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, the beast we got here is a 14-250 with 88,000 miles. All right, this old girl had the infamous P0401 DTC, and yes, we're going to be removing this EGR cooler from the truck. I know you guys have seen my intake removal video. I believe it was when I was doing a turbo on the 19, pretty much the same thing, but nonetheless, we're going to get this tore off, get this EGR cooler on the bench, and I'm going to show you guys if you still have a cooler and a 401, what you're going to need to do to resolve that. So alright, let's get to it, guys. Alright, one of the first things we're going to do here is drain our coolant out of the primary and drain our coolant out of the secondary. I showed you guys how to drain the secondary. The primary isn't too bad to get to. It's actually right there. So let's get that coolant draining, and yeah, we'll take the next step. Alright, coming around here, see, we got the coolant draining, and then over here for the secondary, that's all you guys are doing is just pulling that line off and letting it drain into the pan. We're not going after the radiator drain like we did on the primary. Just that line, bub. Drain it. Alright, so we got this aftermarket air box. We got some stuff we're going to have to work around. Got our 8mm clamp right here, electrical connector, and then our 8mm bolt holding this bad boy in. So let's get this thing wiggled out. Come on, bud. Alright, here we go. Got her up out of here. Sitting down in there. Look how much more room we got. So now we're going to go and we're going to remove that air snorkel to the lower intake manifold. 8mm clamp, 8mm bolt. Work all this stuff out and you'll be able to wiggle air snorkel tube right out of there. Okay guys, so I'm going to start here on the passenger side. What I like to do right off the rip is get this wiring harness out of my way, all these coolant lines out of my way. I want to start being able to visually see the EGR cooler, and I'm going to move over towards the intake manifold. So first off, I'm going to disconnect the main PCM connector. I don't know if you guys can tell here, but right on the other side of this line, little harness twang that we gotta get out of the hole, and then we'll be able to remove the connector like this. So after that, when you follow, you know what, let me get this line out of the way. Let's get this one out of the way. Okay, it has a twang right here, and let's get this out of the way. So moving back to this harness, if you follow this all the way down, you can see, not really, but not on camera, there is a twang right here that I want to get out. It sits on this little plastic thing on the passenger side battery, because I'm going for these two connectors right here. These two bottom ones, there's 4 total. 1, 2, these ones are staying. That gray one and the one underneath are the ones you're removing. Alright, I got these 2 connectors up that I wanted, and this PCM connector, I went ahead and I've disconnected all the electrical connectors on the EGR cooler. So right now we have this bundle of wires that's going to be totally out of our way. One more step though. On the front of the EGR cooler, you'll see a trough, a plastic trough, and it's secured with 2 8mm, and I'm going to show you really quick. There's 2 of these bolts. Rip them out with the old Milwaukee quarter. Don't lose them because you're reusing them. Now I can get this harness all the way down out of my way. I don't even want to look at it. Just get it out of my way. It's clouding my repair area. After that, It's pretty much going to be just getting these other lines off. Take this little guy off the EGR valve. All these coolant lines should be pretty much empty. Maybe tip them straight up to let any coolant drain down in that particular hose. Get this one off. Okay, get this hose. I'm gonna lay it all the way over here, out of the way. I'll deal with that in a little bit. Get this out of my way. I don't want to see it. So now that we're here, let me switch over, get my different socket, put on my gun, and I'm going to actually remove this bracket, moving right along across the top of the EGR cooler. Going to be using these, so don't get those mixed up. I'm going to go for these 3 big front EGR cooler mounting bolts. These are the primary mounting bolts right here that are over our coolant passage. So I'm just going to go ahead and get these out of the way. Obviously reuse these. Don't lose them. You're going to have to take your vacuum line off. Might as well just take it off here too. Get this out of your way. This vacuum line, just go ahead and route that down and out of the way. Take care of not break them. Sometimes they can be, super brittle. I'm gonna go ahead and get this line out of my way because it keeps flopping. Lastly, what we're gonna do, there are some trim clips that hold a sound shield on the side of the valve cover, and it's actually clips into the EGR cooler body. So we're going to get these clips off. Most of the time they break, but the shield stays in place because it's held on by 3 clips in the bottom. Once we get that off, then there are 2 bolts, one here and one a little further back. You will need a setup like this, maybe a little longer extension, use hand tool, and then once you break it loose, you can use either your hands or a little power tool to get it the rest of the way. So, okay, I got the 2 bolts out. Save them. You're gonna reuse them. Now I'm gonna be moving right along. Gonna go ahead and remove this intake manifold. So let's get into that now, shall we? Okay. Intake removal 101. Hold on. Okay, 8 millis for the most part, unless you got yourself a newer truck and they threw some different sizes at you back here in that corner. But yeah, let's rip all these 8 millis out. I'm more worried about this EGR pipe that we're gonna have to deal with here. So we're going to now go for this electrical connector, and then it is twanged right here onto the intake. Sometimes they bust off a little bit. Get that out of there. I don't want to see it. Let's get that boy back there. Get him hiding. Got harness tab locator on the back of the intake. Go ahead and pop that out. Once we get these lines off, there'll be another one for the wastegate tube, vacuum line, I should say. See if we can get this quick disconnect. Give it a little spin. One. Do the bottom. Gotta hit these tabs. Just like that. Pop it off. I go down underneath that AC line so it's out of my way, and then I can come back with my quarter drive ratchet set up, come back and get these boys. Continuing. Okay, that bolt getting to the end. Save it. Okay, you guys can see, I don't know if you can on the video, but right here, oh hey here, right there is a clip that's holding this line to the trans dipstick tube. I just want to go ahead and take that plastic clip off. This is what I'm talking about right here. Don't lose that. And then the next is trying to get that oil dipstick tube bolt out of the intake manifold. And I'm going to come back here again with my quarter drive. Get that 8 milli. Got it. Got my magnet up here. I'm just gonna keep it rolling. Okay, that's your oil dipstick tube bolt. Only one goes in one spot. Can't really mix them up. Yeah, I suppose you could. So what I do now to get these buggers out of my way, this is how they sit. I go like this, okay, and then I'm just pushing it right on top of the CCV box. See how much more out of the way that got? Come back here with my quarter drive again. Did I get this one? Yep. Get these 4 on this side. Okay, that rubber hose is in the way. Let's go ahead and get this out of here. Okay. Hose is sitting on top of my bolt. And we got one more here on the back. Kind of a pain to get to. Can't really see it. I'm just feeling for the bolt head, and I'm coming off the head of the bolt just a little bit with the socket, because I don't want to get jammed up here between the cowl and the intake bolt. That should be completely loose right here. Okay. Your intake should look like that. Yeehaw! Then intake. Come on. Gotta be careful here. Sometimes I zip tie it to this ground strap, but other times it just stays there. We're just gonna try to keep leaving it. So now the intake has got to come like this. It's gonna be pretty close over here. What I take is I take this tube, see how much more room I get here. That allows me, you see what just happened? I just came right up. Let's watch that again. Okay, intake's down where it sits, and I'm pushing, not these tubes, this cack tube out of the way. Nope, now my bolt dropped down. It won't come out the second time. See, just like that. And then the intake is gonna be removed, just like that, guys. Okay, so now that you got it off, either cover your intake ports with these pretty looking covers, or get you some freaking rags. Shove some. Oh, you hear that 6.0 start up? Oh boy. Man, that sucker's loud. Let's go ahead and get this little pipe off here and get this cattywampus out of our way. Got a little clip right here on the lower intake manifold to remove, but I'm just going to go ahead and rip these guys out. Now the risk with this job, unfortunately, is are these EGR pipe bolt to manifold. Now, if you guys remember my 2020 video where I showed you how more robust those bolts were looking, they were 10 mil bolts instead of these little 8 milli guys. Okay, I'm just gonna leave this guy just sitting right here on top of the belt, just sitting right there. No need to remove the electrical connector. Next, I'm going to be going for this connection down here, this exhaust back pressure connector, and you guys can already see the connector, rubber isolator, and shell stayed in the sensor, so just be careful of either dropping that or making sure to reuse that. Over here on the back of the EGR cooler, I think I can show you, there is a stud right there. There is a little harness twang that needs to be removed, and also another one down on the back side of the cooler. Visualize with me. If this is the cooler, I'm looking from the back to the front, and this is the twang that I just took off. Like the cooler would be sitting in here, I just took this twang off. The other harness twang is right here. So if you're gonna need to get your panel popper and kind of go in something like this, like I said, to get the twang off this stud here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and get this all removed. 10 mil nut holding the EBP bracket. Don't take the nut off, just take it off, back it off just a little bit, because it has a bracket that swings down over the stud, and then you tighten the nut and that pinches the bracket to the back side of the cooler. So don't remove the nut, just leave it on the cooler. And the exhaust back pressure flare nut is 16 milli. Okay, I've removed that twang over there. I've removed this for your guys' sake. I hope it was as loose on the tube as it was for mine. Sometimes I see these really locked up and I gotta work it back and forth and lube it up and back and forth, and it's just a pain just to get this thing off. But it worked out in our favor today. All right, we have 2 bolts left here on the cooler. I'm gonna go ahead and rip this back corner one out. And then I'm gonna switch sockets. I'm saving the worst for the last. Getting our last bolt for the cooler. And I don't feel like jumping back up there. So I'm gonna use my magnet here. Pull this one out, pull this one out. This coolant line that we moved over here by the AC line, I'm gonna take and put right up here above the turbo. Right above the turbo up pipe on the passenger side manifold. That brings us to our final piece. Oh lordy lordy, I hope this goes well. I'm going for this pipe right now. This one usually is, these 2 bolts are usually alright. I've had them break off in the cab chassis EGR valve before, because one of the difference in our cab chassis to pickups is our EGR valve is cast. This one is aluminum, so I don't have too many issues with these bolts. Just a couple of times they broke, but here they are. They look decent. I'm getting a little bit of anxiety right now. Trying not to. This is the bad lad right here. Gotta cut. Time to change gloves. Okay, here we go. Real time. They're either gonna bust or they're coming out. I've done this 2 ways. I'm gonna put a link in the description of my #1 searched YouTube video for EGR bolts breaking out of 6.7. And I kind of go through the procedure on how to fix that. I'm hoping I'm not gonna have to do that today, but I've used this, got a fresh 8 milli on here, kind of a hand impact driver. I've also used a long 3/8 extension, same socket, and then smacked it with the old hammer do. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this right now. I apologize about the loudness because I'm about to get wiki wild. Come on, baby. Just busted the socket, guys. Come on. Okay, now I switched over to a used impact socket. Oh man, come on, baby. That thing is in there, man. Let's try this one. Shit, dude. Oh man. Woo. Okay, you guys, man, this is becoming quite a pain. I tried using my driver with my air hammer. That still didn't work. I just put this concoction on it and it just broke free, and I find that highly unusual. I don't know if this is too good to be true or what, but I want you guys to loosen it here with me, because pretty weird if you ask me. I'm gonna tighten it, I'm gonna get some lube, and I'm gonna do this process back and forth. Hopefully this does not have a poor outcome. Get that down in there. Okay, I can feel the lube get on that already. Come on, puppy. Come on, puppy. Let me spray some more before I go too far. Alright, here we go, going back out. Feels alright getting here to the top. I don't want to say anything bad. I can see the gasket flopping around. Okay, got it by hand. Alright, let's see what our non-ferrous bolt looks like. Oh, that was stuck in there, man. We got one more, and I sure as hell hope, bro. One's better than both having them break. Okay, I haven't touched this one at all since I was air hammering, so you guys can see the gasket jiggle around down there. Here's first torque. Can I turn this just a smidge more? There we go. Okay, it already seems loose. Maybe I was turning it. That pipe, look at it. Okay, I'm gonna do the same ordeal. DTR, Diesel Tech Ron, I hope you're watching down on me. R.I.P. man, I hope your family's doing well. I think about you every time I use my WD and some of my other essential tools that I got just because you were using them. Tried emailing his family to see how they were all doing, but I haven't had a response back yet, but understandable. Life's moving by. Rest in peace, buddy. And even Rusty Bun too. Rusty Bun, Senior Master Tech Rusty Bun. Make sure to check out his channel too, guys. He's got a lot of good 6.0 content, head gasket removals, in chassis. Two good technicians out there. Okay, you guys, I think we were successful. Oh my good, no movie magic on this one. Straight up taking some time. Minimize the risk. There's a risk with doing an EGR cooler, and it's having these bolts break off in your exhaust manifold. Focus. There you go. Came out all right, guys. Oh my goodness. All right, so now that we got this Godzilla contraption malarkey out of the way, got my gasquito and my other gasquito. Okay, there's the cooler. She's heavy. She needs to be taken off level. If you tip it, you're gonna get douched with coolant. I'm forewarning you. So what I would probably do, where your air filter housing is, maybe put a drain pan in there so that you can just go whoop right into the drain pan, and then take the drain pan with the EGR cooler and lift it off the truck and onto your bench. Next shot, you're gonna see this cooler on the bench. What I usually do is take the cooler and tilt it back and forth and then flip it upside down and do the same thing to get coolant coming out of those two ports and then the two ports underneath, just so that you're not making a mess here on your bench. So let's get it set up and wheel the cart over here, and yeah. All right, let's get this cooler out. Okay. I like to put it right on the edge of the bench like that. What I'm gonna do is, you guys can see that there are two pieces here. I have this piece here and this piece here. We do not want to separate the EGR valve from our EGR cooler bypass. We want to take the EGR cooler bypass off of the EGR cooler housing. So do not touch any of these bolts. Only the perimeter, but you must remove this bolt right here because this bolt is like this long. So we're gonna head, again, the setup that I use is just this right here. You can throw the bolts away because we are not reusing them. I need more power. Okay, sometimes the EGR valve bypass wants to separate immediately from the cooler, but sometimes the dowels that it sits on can be a little rusted. Just gotta get a flat blade skinny. Try to go between the gaskets. I don't want to mess up the metal of this. I don't care about the cooler because I'm replacing the part that I'm prying against. So I'm just working this off the two dowels that are located at the bottom of the component. Sometimes the dowels stay. Just keep working it back and forth. Gotten one off. Now, there we go. See how the dowel stayed on that one? We're just gonna leave it. Check it out. Look how blew out that cooler is. Look how clogged that is. Inlet, outlet. All right, so what we're gonna do next, flip the cooler around, come here to the back side. Talk about that 10 mil nut I was telling you guys about. For exhaust back pressure tube. And here's that other stud. Remember I was showing you guys visually where that other locating tab was. Big bolts back here are 13s. You will be reusing these. This only goes on one way, although it looks the same. The gasket and this only go on this way. Okay, so the cooler is ready to be removed. We are not reusing any of these gaskets. All right, get it in the vise. I want the front, the heat exchanger, to come out that way. What I've been doing is using two hammers. I stick one hammer in and I'm gonna alternate between those ports on the back, and I'm just gonna drive that heat exchanger out with my BFH. Usually it doesn't fall out like that, but when you bust it loose, yeah, it falls out somewhat like that. Here it is. Check it out. Now I know of a lot of, oh, why would you even put this thing back on? Because I got to. Got to play by the rules, bud. What I like to do is clean this in a vat of water. Just go and douche it all out. I got two O-rings I got to take out here. I want to clean up this surface with the cookies. Clean up that surface, and then this surface. And then we're going to do the same for our EGR valve bypass. I got the EGR cooler all cleaned, douched it out with water. All the surfaces are nice and clean and taken care of, along with this and the EGR valve and bypass. Everything's all nice and clean. In order to do the cooler, you're going to need the gasket kit. 11 through 16 are all going to be the same. Piece de resistance, the EGR cooler box that's going to have the new heat exchanger. Starting off, let's flip the cooler over. Big O-rings, and we're pretty much just going to work them down into the groove that they sit in the cooler's backside. These are both going to have to be lubed. I like using this stuff, just putting a little bit. So if you guys can see, if everybody's played with Legos, I sure hope they could figure this out. See what that looks like? Does that look like that right there? No, it doesn't. Does this one look like that? Yeah, it does. So we're going to be putting this gasket on here first. I'm missing dowel here. Try to keep everything nice and straight so that when we put that bypass back on, that dowel will line up. Brand new heat exchanger. Check it out. You guys can put the 17 and up core in it. Gaskets and everything would stay the same. Cooler guts are way bigger. Got bigger straws in it. Let me see if I have one over here. All right, I found it, guys. This is an 11. The dude, after or before he took this off, he wanted 17 and up EGR cooler. See those holes? And then see these holes? This has got about 50,000 on it. You can see it's barely even clogged. But I just wanted to show you guys this as an alternative. If you guys don't want to use what came out, you guys can put the newer guts in. We're going to put some lube right around edge. Now, how I press this in, I'm going to show you guys. Just gently slide it in. Try to keep that gasket lined up. I'm going to set this on the floor, and I'm going to put my body weight. I'm pushing down like this, right against the floor, and I'm actually going to do it until my feet lift right up off the ground, and boom, then it goes in. You don't need to hammer it in. I just put it on the floor and push down on it. Went right in. I can actually take these two tabs right here, and I can slide that gasket around. Next gasquito, make sure we put that on. It actually has some wording on it that tells you that that is the bypass side. The gasket we put on before said cooler side. Now, I have had this thing sitting here for a minute, and sometimes when I go to tip it, coolant will drip out. Right there, see? Do that before I douche that all over that new gasket. Just make sure I get all my coolant out. Try to set it in with the dowel. There we go, you can see it going down. All the bolts are in. Obviously there's a torque spec, but I'm not going to torque them. I've done this enough to where I know the power of my tool, my gun that I'm going to use, and just watching the bolt as it turns. Now I'm going to go back around it once more. I do it one more time. Now that that's done, I like to put the bottom on last so that I can use the EGR cooler kind of like on a stand. That way I'm not facing the front of it like I was. That looks good. Go on like this, or is it going to go on like this? I see the part number. I'm going to say it goes on like this. And again, I'm just running these boys down. Now that was my 3/8 gun, and I was just running them all the way down. I'm not going to go over them again because I'm going to snap the bolt off. I just went until the bolt stopped. No big deal. 10 milli. Don't forget to put your nut back on over here. How it sits, the cooler is ready to be reinstalled back onto the vehicle. But, and that's one big but, before you start, you guys need to put these two O-rings in the valve cover on the engine. Since you're there, you might as well go ahead and grind that manifold, just clean up that gasket surface, and get these installed, and then you're ready for installation, guys. Okay, we're back over to the truck. Got my new gaskets installed. I clean the manifold, and I put some ARP head stud lubricant down in them holes and on them bolts. When you guys set the cooler back down, I mean, it is kind of heavy. Just take precaution not to drop the cooler on any of these injector returns. The guy who actually took that cooler off that I showed you with the bigger 17 up EGR cooler guts, he obviously didn't know the weight of the cooler prior to removing, and I'm assuming when he unbolted it or moved it, it dropped and broke the injector return off of injector number 4. So just be careful. It's kind of floating the back and the front, and it sits down on dowels. What I'd like to do first is get these big boys seated down. We're gonna have to take one off. There was a bracket, if you guys remember, that went there. I'm gonna start with the middle one. You guys saw it go right down. Smash those O-rings. That's nice and tight. I like it, I like it. I like it. Right over here, get this one in the corner. Now it's important to me that I put everything back in the order that it was removed. Alright, a couple things I want to point out here. I have had wiring problems right here, where these fingers right here on this heat shield cap make contact with these wires for the exhaust back pressure sensor. When you guys go ahead and slide that back down around, orientate the fingers in a fashion that does not hit those wires so that you guys don't get a chafy chafe. The other thing that I like to do is the heat shield can for the turbo. It's just flopping around pretty much like this. Like this, just kind of just doing its little thing. I don't really like that. I like having it like this. It's not moving, it's not backing off, it's not in the way of the intake. It's straight and conducive on how I like to do work. So those are just a couple of pointers that I want you guys to make sure to pay attention when you're installing it back on. And additionally, once you're done with that EBP, get your coolant hose and snake your coolant hose back over to where you had it, and install these 2 bolts in here like this. These bolts are actually going to hold our gasket in, and what we'll do, we're going to follow the pipe down with the socket just like this, and float it right above the hole. We're going to start that one by hand, start this one by hand, grab my straight socket so that we can run these down just a little more. Alright, they're definitely started. That one kind of scared me for a second, but definitely started. Run it down here a little more. Touch. Gonna go ahead with our second gasket. I like to install it like this. So I have that flat on the top. Bolts over here, just work it. You'll find the hole in the gasket. Starting by hand. Okay, once that is on, we're going to come back over here to our EGR bolt that we put in. Gonna take this out. Okay, the cooler's down. Removing that bolt isn't going to compromise anything. Okay, so if you guys remember this, we need everything nice and loose yet. Go ahead and throw that down. Get these guys in here, that pipe to bracket. Now I am going to draw the pipe in first, and then I'm going to do the bracket. Excuse me. So give a snug, snug, snug. I know somebody out there is probably saying snug, snap. Get that one on. Finally, this one with the longer ass extension. Unnecessary. Back here, we're going to tighten these guys. You shouldn't really see that pipe move at all. That's pretty flush. Our light's going out. Okay, we got light. Go ahead and put your vacuum line on to your bypass vacuum reservoir ball. Once you're here, go ahead and get your vacuum line and orientate that here. Looks good. So really right now what we're ready for is that upper intake manifold installation. Let's see if I can get that installed and show you guys the process for doing that. Rich, I got you. I got you. Okay, here it comes. Remember, we pushed down this pipe. I'm gonna try to go in the exact same way we came out. Oh, bolt came out. Move it over, and we got, I mean, guys, I barely even pushed down in there. This thing sat down right on here. So make sure your harness back here. Let me maneuver that just out the way, just a wee bit. There we go. And the intake should jiggle around like that. I just push all the bolts in their holes here. They kind of just follow themselves in once you start ripping on them. Just push them in the hole. Intake will still be nice and loose. And then, yeah, babe, just Milwaukee these boys right down. If it was a gasser. A couple more bolts to tighten. Get these two boys back here. I've had a lot of people trying to get a hold of me. Oh, wow. I've had people trying to get a hold of me, you know, via the comment section in YouTube, and they're not very up to date, I guess, if you want to say. Best way to get a hold of me if anybody needs questions is email me. Go to the description or my about page and check out my email address, and I'll make sure to get back to you. Alright, there we go. I'll crisscross these back. Tighten this down. That's all good. Come back here and fish up our map sensor connector. Again, it's got a little twang here. Yep, clip this in, no problem. We got some new gaskets here. Pop these on. These can be a pain in the butt to try to get on and line the bolt up, but we always get it. Okay, so I just kind of get one bolt started, and then just kind of twist the pipe and jiggle the gasket lined up. Same with this. You'll feel the bolt hole line up. The gasket just can fight you. That's good. Okay, so this one should be right here. Persuasion. Let's see if we can draw it in past the gasket. Again, we're not torquing them. They're little tiny baby bolts. And then don't forget your little clip that holds the harness in. You guys can just see the corner of that. And then come over here, get your quick disconnect line. Get these out of here. Also, your coolant line that you moved out of the way earlier. We're gonna go for all of this stuff now. Now it's just flopping around and nice and loose. Go ahead and start those small connectors. And we need to put in our last corner bolt down there. All right. Let's get these other coolant lines back on. That guy down in here, that guy. Get this clamp, and that's pretty much it. We are going to need to put our big ass Banks air filter back in. Put this thing back on. For as big as it is, it wasn't too bad to remove. There we go. Now she's sitting like I want her to. Alright, that's it, you guys, and how to do this EGR cooler on your 6.7 from start to finish. There's one more thing I want to show you, but I'm going to fill up both cooling systems first. Alright everyone, I just got done filling up the coolant. I filled up all the coolant that I took out of it. Don't worry, that level will go down. But I want to show you something. As you start this thing up, your truck may run rough. Here it was running rough. Sometimes it shakes real bad. Don't be alarmed. I don't know what it is. If taking that off does that, I don't know. It doesn't do anything. I've had it stall maybe a couple times in my EGR replacements, but ain't nothing to worry about. So tell me what you guys think about this in the comment section below. If anybody has had to replace their EGR cooler or rebuild the guts on their 6.7 Power Stroke, make sure to join the fam. See, it's starting to run off just a little bit right now. Look at that. Should clear up. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see you next Friday. Get some stickers. Have a good week, guys.